Hello, Bells Up Studio. Today's 20-minute set is a mix of hinge movements and pull movements, and you're gonna want two matching kettlebells that you can gorilla row. So that is a low position. We're gonna be pulling one bell as we push the other and then doing the same. If that's a little too aggressive for you, you can go a little lighter today and go into a hinge row and hold them here. So that would be your modification. Your other movement is going to be a staggered stance deadlift with both of your bells, and we're gonna try adding some rotation to that. You're gonna use your bells for the warm-up section today, which is gonna go by pretty fast. It's about 5 minutes long, and then we're gonna get into some sets of those deadlifts and gorilla rows. Of course, if you have options to heavy bells as well as bells that you can row, go for that because I want your deadlifts to feel pretty heavy. You are going to be doing a 60-second on, 30-second off interval. So I would say not the heaviest you've ever done, so perfect opportunity to use those moderate weight bells for some lower body and push some higher reps today. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna start with that single leg RDL, but we're going to actually lift our leg up and try holding that position for a little bit in the back and standing up. So you can take these as slow or as fast as you want. You also can take them fully body weight if you need to. So if you're just practicing this position here, we're gonna try to keep our knee behind our ankle and or I should say on top of our ankle, and then our shin parallel. So you don't want your knee coming forward too much like that. We're trying to go for hips back, toes turned a little bit out on your back side with a flexed foot, and thinking of keeping your chest upright with your shoulders in line with your hips. So you're not falling forward here. We're thinking of growing nice and long. So if body weight works for you, go for it. You can also hold on to something here, or the version I'm gonna show you is holding your kettlebell in your opposite hand. So let's go ahead, push down. Let's start with your stable leg, whatever one you feel better on first, let's go with that side. So for me, that's my right. I'm gonna push my foot down, and we're gonna do this about 40 seconds. So I'm gonna think of turning my back toes in and then letting them slightly drag on the floor until my hips are fully back, and then I'll lift that leg up. I'm gonna hold here just a few seconds and then push through my front foot to lift up. So you can just start taking reps there, trying to think of letting your hips be square so you're not shooting your down leg hip or your working leg hip off to the side, and you're not dropping fully through your opposite hip. If you have a bell in your hand, it actually can help mitigate this type of thing. If you're naturally trying to go here and drop your hip down instead of keeping them in line. We're gonna be here for another 3, 2, and 1, and then we'll hit your other side, so shake it out. So even if you have a lightweight, sometimes that helps with some balance, and it helps to, again, keep your hips in line a little bit. It makes it a little harder because you're obviously working with some weight, but you have that advantage of the counterbalance. Okay, let's go for your other side. We'll go 3, 2, and 1. So we're just gonna practice this position. When we do it with heavier weights today, you will not be lifting your back foot off the floor at all. You'll have it on the ground, so if you're a little nervous about that, don't be. And if you're kind of in between, you can always just bring that foot back and keep it on the floor here when you get into that fully extended position. So just let your toe kind of glide on the floor and let it hover or touch, and then let yourself come up. Then you can start practicing lifting your back foot. That's one way that I help people go from staggered, which we're gonna do today, into that full single leg version with taking out some of the constraints due to balance on your leg. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, and rest. Next, we have a quadruped pass. If you need a modification for this one, you're just gonna hold your quadruped plank. You could take some shoulder taps if you want an in-between, or you're gonna go full quadruped with your bell on one side of you. We're gonna try to come into a tabletop position and then pull our bell across our body without sending our hips back like this. Let's go ahead, try it. We'll go 3, 2, and 1. So start with your bell on the opposite side of the hand that you're gonna use to pull, and you're just gonna pull it through. Try to hover your knees about 3 inches from the floor and think of pushing your hands down as you grab onto the weight. So you don't want your hips shifting side to side. This is kind of not where we wanna be, using momentum to move ourselves back. We wanna think of getting rotation through our core, not so much our hips. So all of that should be coming from above your waist. You're here for 3, 2, and 1. Our next set, we're gonna take some hip shifts. Beginner version, or I would say modification version, would be here with body weight, working on loading our hip, but not letting it shoot off to the side. We wanna think of it going back and slightly turning our chest towards our front leg. The next version is adding a weight to that. So you'll hold on to your weight, it's gonna come towards your instep, and then you're gonna switch your side. The next version would be here, pulling it up towards your belly button in a row position. thinking of your wrist connecting towards your hip. So let's go ahead and try whichever one works best for you. We'll pick your bell up in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm gonna shift towards my opposite side, load that hip, and then pull. I should really feel weight in the leg of the side that does not have the kettlebell. So in the opposite side of the bell that your hand is in. So I'm really feeling it in my left booty cheek here, but I'm pulling with my right. Again, this position is perfectly fine. Just like in our squat, we don't want to collapse our chest forward here. So you don't want to be doing toe touches. It does not matter how far down your hand goes. I want more hip back and thinking about really moving it behind you and loading by pushing that foot down. You're here for 3, 2, and 1. You know you did it right if you're feeling a little bit in your glute med, this chunky part of your booty on the top. Maybe some groin and inner thigh for that one. Okay, next up, we're gonna try some push-ups. Hands on kettlebells is maybe a little more of the advanced version here. You just wanna make sure your bells are heavy enough that they're sturdy, they're not gonna fall over. You can do this with your hands on the floor. I like holding the bells just for a little less intensity on the wrists for this part of the program. You could also do these with a bench, and you could also do them on your knees, quite honestly, if you keep a strong pelvic tuck. Let's go ahead and hit 40 seconds. It's a long interval. Do what you can here and try to slow them down so you're not busting out reps and you're really working for this whole interval. So let's go 3, 2, and 1. I like to turn my kettlebell handles a little bit out so I maintain that integrity of my elbows going about 45 degrees, but I'm naturally kind of tracking my elbows along the path of the handle. So if my handles are facing straight back and my elbows are going out to the sides a little bit, it feels kind of clunky. So if you're gonna face your handle straight on, you'd be doing more of a military style push-up, most likely, or something that is a closer tricep push-up. Think of kind of turning them slightly so they match the path of your elbow. And this is also a good technique to remember if you're ever in a gym using a cable machine. You want to line up your joints with the direction that you're moving. You've got 3, 2, and 1. Okay, warm up is done here. We're gonna go right into our staggered deads and our gorilla rows. So something I want you to remember with your staggered deadlift, your front leg is the star, your back leg is just there to help you keep your back hip forward. So we don't want to ever turn out. We're going anti-rotation here. I'm going to try to load all my weight in the front foot, pushing through the center of my foot, sending my hips back. I'm going to have one bell next to my leg here. The other bell is going to slightly turn towards my big toe. And I'm going to try to move my hips back without shifting them to the side. So think of that hip shift that we just did. We're gonna do each side of the body. You get 30 seconds to rest your hands from holding your kettlebells because it is a lot to hold them for the 60 seconds for each side. And then we'll hit those gorilla rows, alternating our sides each time. Again, 4 times through this set. So go ahead and get your kettlebells out. And I have my bells ready, and I'm gonna show you this version without a wall. If you have access to a wall, it can be beneficial sometimes to push your back foot into it to create that tension and really help your hip on your front leg go back instead of shooting to the side when you're underweight. So that could be an option for you. If not, you don't need to have one. I just want you to be really aware of your feet and pushing them into the floor as you do this, as you're rotating, moving down, and of course, as you're moving the weight up. We're gonna start this in about 20 seconds, and I want you to go with that leg that felt like the strongest or the best to just figure out your form first before you move on to your leg that has more opportunity. We all have one. Let's go ahead and pick our bells up. You're gonna pick them up suitcase style, stand fully, and then we'll come into our stagger position. Let's go 3, 2, and 1. So we'll pick the bell up. So what I'm gonna do is slightly move back the toe of the non-working leg, hold my bell on the side of my working leg, and then as I send my hips back, I'm gonna slightly move my kettlebell in front of my big toe or just on top of it. So notice I'm not reaching it down to my toe. My hips are leading me. My arms are not moving. They are actually glued to my sides. So I'm thinking of squeezing the handles of my bell, squeezing my armpits really tight, and my range of motion is gonna be limited to how much I can get my booty to go back and up. You wanna think slightly of spreading the booty cheeks as you go down, lifting your tailbone while maintaining your core control here. 3, well, I lied, we have about 10 seconds. I was starting to count 40 seconds like our warm up. Try not to let your weight go into the outside of your foot. And again, really think of pushing your foot down as you go down and up. We're here for 3, 2, and 1. Bells come down. So this is your 30-second break. I want you to try to stay loose here, move around a little bit. You can shake that leg out. If you had good form here, your technique was pretty solid, you're probably feeling something in the middle part of your butt cheek, or at least somewhere in that working leg, so the front leg side. The back leg side, again, is just there for support. You might feel a little bit of a stretch in your hip flexor or the back leg side, but most of the work should be felt in that front leg. Let's go ahead, pick your bells up for your second side in 3, 2, and 1. Before I do this, part of my checks and balances is spreading my toes out, and that works really well if I don't have shoes on. So if you can do this one without shoes, at least the first few times that you're kind of mastering this movement, it really does help to feel where you want to bear your weight. So I'm thinking of pushing down the bed of my big toe so that inner kind of sole of my foot is where I want to be. And then I'm thinking of slightly pushing back my back heel as I do the little cheek spread and what else? All the good things, keeping everything together. Keep moving through here. And if the first round you don't get the same amount of reps, it's okay, the world is not gonna fall apart. You do not need to be completely even here. I just want you to feel out the movement. And then the second round we do this, you can start counting your reps and try to match them. Let's go for 3, 2, and 1. We're gonna come into our full standing position. Hips go back to set the bells down. Next up is our gorilla row. So this class is a little more strength focused. Again, if you have multiple sets of bells, maybe you're like, I could go a little heavier on my deadlift, and I'm gonna keep it moderate on these rows. Remember, you do have a full minute in these gorilla rows. Those of you that have a pull-up or chin-up practice, you could even sub a lat pull-down machine here, could do one of those instead in lieu of these, but if you're working with 2 bells, you can do them with those 2 bells that you have. Okay, bells come between your feet. You're gonna stand over the top. Let's come down and do a squat in 3, 2, and 1. So we're gonna get kind of comfy at the bottom here, and I like to turn my bells on their side a little bit. So I'm gonna push my feet down, push my left-hand side bell down as I pull my right bell towards my hip, and then set it back down. I'm gonna try to keep my chin neutral instead of here, just for keeping my neck long and not overdoing this one with my upper traps. I'm really trying to think of facilitating pulling back. If this position is crushing you, especially after all the squats you might have done on our previous videos, come up and try to facilitate the same thing, alternating your sides here, just a little bit higher. You can also take a 3-point row, which is bringing one hand onto a platform and then pulling here, so you have that stability still. Chair works really well, a bench works really well. You're here for 3, 2, and 1. I didn't quite warn you in enough time for that 3-point row, so you can start that now. You're just gonna have the 3-point 2 times instead of 1 time instead of 2 times on one of your sides. So just be aware of that. Okay, 15 seconds here. We're gonna do this whole thing again. We're really gonna try to nail that form for our staggered deadlift. Maybe you pick your speed up a little bit this time and really focus on fast but tight reps. I don't want them to get sloppy if you're adding reps or speed. Let's pick your bells up in 3, 2, and 1. So hips go back. I'm gonna show you this one from the front because sometimes this is a view we don't get too often in hinges. So I'm moving the bell here. Hips go back. So notice my right hip is going back instead of out to the right side. My shoulders are not rolling forward as I do this, and I'm not thinking of touching the bell to the floor. My bell goes down a little bit far because I have long arms, but everyone's gonna look different here. Notice that I'm not totally rotating my body this way. I'm just slightly guiding that kettlebell over my big toe and making sure my weight is a little forward in my foot so I feel it in the center part of that big toe sole of my foot. You're here for another just about 15 seconds. This is all we have today. Just 2 more sets after this round is done. Basically, you're almost halfway through your 20-minute set. Try to keep on pace and count those reps. We've got 3, 2, and 1. Very good. This is actually a great class to hit the favorite button if you need one during like a lunch hour or a day when you don't have a lot of time, but maybe you're sitting a lot and you want something where you might not get insanely sweaty, but if you've got those two bells, you can get in some good hip extension here. So we're getting some length in our hip flexors. That really contradicts the seated position that we're in so much of the day. Let's go ahead, hit your other side. Bells will come up in 3, 2, and 1. So I would call this sort of an optimal desk sitter session because you're getting some good work for your back as well. This is pretty much all posterior chain, so the back of your body, and your core, which are the muscles in the front, your abdominals, and the muscles that wrap around your lower back. So a really good one if you're kind of stationary and you just need some good movement. I would concentrate on this one, this top part, and really getting a full standing position here as you hinge. If the two bells are a little bit cumbersome for you, I want you to get rid of the bell on the working leg side and work on that little rotation here because that's what's really controlling our hip. Remember the warm up with those hip shifts, that opposite contralateral hold is what we call it in the trainer speak. You want to think of that bell aiming, and that's going to keep this hip under control. You've got 3, 2, and 1. One of my favorite variations of this movement is having the bell on that side or a big old dumbbell and really taking these slow at a tempo, following through all the way and just doing as many as I can up to failure until I really am fatigued. And usually what happens in this one is you'll probably get fatigued in your arm before you will in your legs just because of that grip and holding onto your kettlebell or your dumbbells. Take the hinge row version that works the best for you here. You just want something where you're hinging. And pull-ups, chin-ups, also optimal. We've got 3, 2, and 1. They're different rowing patterns, but all of them are good. The gorilla row, you might have to widen your feet a little. If you feel like you're kind of, like for me, I feel like if they're too narrow, I sort of get stuck right here, like my arm rubs up against it. Get those feet wide and really assume that stance. It's a little bit like doing a wall sit here. Push your opposite bell down. I can't tell you enough how much this makes your pull stronger. So we want those opposing forces of tension here, and we want to create length. Your breath is in before you pull, out as you pull. So it should be in through the nose, out through the mouth. This one is not as important that it's audible, but I don't want you holding your breath. You have 10 seconds here. We're gonna do this whole thing 2 more times. Doing great, my friends. We're here for 3, 2, and 1. Love it. Okay, let's shake our legs out and assume the position. We're gonna get into our staggered deadlifts. 2 more sets of these today. And I'll go ahead and show you guys that single bell version, just so you have something to go off of, because every time I describe something, I realize if you're a visual learner, you might be like, what are you talking about? So if I describe it, I'm gonna try to do my best to give you a demo for it, unless it's pull-ups or chin-ups, then you're on your own for that one. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. I'll have to change my studio up for the pull-up and chin-up. So I'd start here. I like to put my hand on my low back like this, just to help facilitate it moving back. And then I'm gonna think of hinging my hips, moving that bell slightly towards my big toe, lifting my booty, and then pushing through the floor to come up. I'm gonna keep thinking of shifting, 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 shifting back, push my foot down to come up. Doing that again. My back knee can also be a really nice way to find this position. So sometimes I imagine the back knee slightly pulling in towards my front heel as I send my hips back. So it's slightly moving in that direction, and then I push through my whole foot to come up. That could be the cue that clicks for you versus the moving the bell in, because if your back knee is slightly pulling in, you're also controlling that hip to the midline, which is what we want. Think of hips doing this versus one doing this or one doing this. You've got 3, 2, and 1. I have a client that I started doing staggered deadlifts with her. Very challenging for her, and they can be for a lot of us. And part of it wasn't because of her legs. And these are the primary primary stimulus is happening here in our legs, but this is a lot of work on your core. So if you're someone that feels this in your abs a lot, maybe in your opposite oblique of the kettlebell, that is completely normal. Let's go ahead and hit your opposite side. And part of that is because as you go down, we'll go 3, 2, and 1. Your body on this side is resisting that pull. So you're really thinking, actually here, if we're doing contralateral, you're getting that stimulus from holding the weight on this side, and then this side is trying to stabilize you. So just think about anytime you have a weight on one side, your other side has to fight to keep you in an even position unless you're really going for rotation. But here, we're trying to go for a tiny bit of rotation. I would even call this a bit of anti-rotation just because we're not fully rotating. We're just kind of doing that as like a playpen for our hip so it doesn't get out to the side. You have just about 15 seconds here. So the abs are working hard. Your arm is working hard. Your back is working hard. This is one of the benefits and the curses to doing free weight training because our body has to support the weight. So our body has to be strong enough to do that. Plus, it's getting that strain versus if I had you do something to stimulate your glutes on, let's say, a machine. You've got 3, 2, and 1. There's a lot of ways that you can stimulate your muscles, or you can challenge your muscles, I guess is a better word. And the thing about it is sometimes it is optimal to do something where the rest of your body doesn't have to contribute as much, so you can really push heavy weight. An example of this could be like doing a leg press in the gym, where you're in a laying position and you can really just push with your legs. The rest of your body doesn't really have to come along for the party and support you as much because the machine is there. Let's get your rows in 3, 2, and 1. But with free weights, part of the benefit is your whole body is working. So the training can be maybe a little shorter, still pretty efficient, but there's a lot of what we call axial loading, which means that our spine is being loaded because we're supporting the weight with our whole body. And that's great, but it also can limit us on how long we can hold the weight, how weak or strong the rest of our body is to support us, how many reps we could do, and how heavy the weight could be. Same idea when we talk about squatting with kettlebells. It's a lot of work to hold the weights on your body for your core, for your cardiovascular system. So they will feel drastically different than loading up a barbell with the weights out here for an equal type of weight. You've got 3, 2, and 1. So if you ever have done barbell squats or even like a Smith machine squat where the bar is attached and you can go up and down, we have one more round, ladies and gentlemen. You can try this, like go heavy with your kettlebells. For me, maybe like a 20 kg squat is about 88 pounds. If I do 88 pounds on the barbell, it feels pretty easy. If I do 88 pounds loaded on my chest with kettlebells, I'm out of breath so quickly. Let's go ahead and start your deadlifts in 3, 2, and 1. So you can really test the difference once you start sort of adding to your skill repertoire. Go right into your set of deadlifts. This is your last one on this side. And maybe this is a set where you decide if your form is feeling good, you kind of take up the pace just a little bit. And this isn't like bouncy. We have to think of still smooth and smooth. It's like, can you hit that position, that optimal position for you every single rep with smoothness? I can't even think of a better word for it because it really is like less of sort of dropping into it, more of I'm here, I'm hitting that same depth. I know where it is. I always describe this as working on your free throw shot. So if you're good at shooting baskets and you do that often, you're gonna practice that shot because when the opportunity comes, you wanna be able to set yourself up to make that shot every time. 3, 2, and 1. And all that is it comes with consistency because you're the same amount from the hoop every single time. The ball is the same size every single time. What changes is your mechanics. And golf is the same way. If you can set yourself up and control your body and control the apparatus in the same way and hit that same position each time, you're more likely to land the shot or land in the right spot. Same thing here. You want to think of finding the position for you where this is landing the shot. So you're not like going down here sometimes and then here. Not every rep, let's go ahead and start in 3, 2, and 1, needs to look the same because as you fatigue, they might start to look a little different. But you want to have that body awareness for where is my depth, or How comfortable do I feel going down and standing up? What is the speed that I feel like I can control my body without losing it in these free weight positions? And again, that's gonna be something you have to experiment with. And the hardest part about it is it takes time. It takes reps. That same client I was telling you guys about earlier that was learning the staggered deadlift and telling me like, oh, my core really feels this. She recently has kind of like crossed a bridge of having a lot more body awareness when she lifts. And she has said to me so many times that now she feels like it's starting to happen automatically. And it's taken us probably 6 months or more for her coming from more of a beginner level to get to that point. You're here for 3, 2, and 1. Your final set of alternating gorilla rows is coming up next. We are almost there, my friends. Go ahead, bring the bells in really close. Stand over them, and if you need to step back a little bit behind them, if you're turning them, which I recommend, go for it. And again, try to get those legs wide. We're gonna see if we can let our quads burn a little. If you're rounding your shoulders to get down, that's a point where I say you should probably take one of the higher versions so you can keep your chest tall and the integrity of your upper back. Let's go 3, 2, and 1. So we're here, we're gonna pull back. I like to imagine my neck and my head being kind of soft and still pushing my feet down into the floor with my eye gaze a little bit in front of me. So it should be kind of like, if you imagine that you're making a triangle with your eye gaze and your toes, your eyes will kind of just fall in that natural spot in front of you. Again, we don't want to be here sticking up our booty. So that little tuck of the pelvis before you get down there can correct some of that, especially if you are prone to anterior tilt like this. So I come into this with that little tuck, then send my hips back, and then drop down a little bit more so I'm squatty. You can kind of move your legs a little bit here. Don't be afraid to get a little motion as you pull if that's helping you get length. You're here for 3, 2, and 1. Your 20-minute set is finished. Very good, guys. Today was a lot of the back of the body. Surprisingly, this one could make you a little bit sore. And again, favorite this class if you liked it. You can save it for later if you need a quick session that really gets your glutes, your hips, and your back working. Also, again, an awesome one to save if you need a little lunch break set or for a day that you're sitting a lot. I will see you guys in another Bells Up Studio class very soon. Remember, get real, get strong, bells up. Bye.